Now I'd like to talk to you about drawing the eye. And I think one of the things we think of when we begin to draw eyes is that they're very much this same shape across the top as they are across the bottom, almost football shaped in a way. And in all honesty, in all truthfulness, the eye is a series of arcs that are very different. And part of it hinges around this little area toward the center where our tear duct is. That's called the caruncula, Caruncula, caruncula. And that little pinky, fleshy part in the corner of our eye makes all the difference in the shape of the eye. So the eye, if we start at that point, begins on a short, steep climb. A short, steep climb to the arc up here at the top, and then a long, gradual descent. And then the caruncula on some people is a little bit horizontal. Some people it dips down a little bit. But there's a very specific shape to that part, and then there's a long, gradual curve across the bottom. One of the things that has always helped me understand how to draw the eye a little bit better is that the eye itself is sort of like a golf ball that sits back in the socket of the eye. If you reach up and you feel your bones that surround the sort of cockpit of your eye, the brow bones juts out very prominently, and then your cheekbone raises up to protect it. All of those things are in place to protect that eyeball. The part that we see, the iris and the pupil, are sitting out in front of that lens of the eye, which actually protrudes a little bit from the eye. And the iris itself is a perfect circle, and the pupil is also a perfect circle. So one of the things I recommend after we get this shape in there is that you draw the perfect circle. Draw all the way through lightly. You want to make sure lightly, so that you're taking up the right amount of space. Many times students will get this, this sort of football shape, and then they'll have this thing up here like this, which is the iris. And very infrequently would we see this much space below the iris. You'd almost have to pull your lid down in order to see that. More often than not, we get a little triangular portion on either side of the white of the eye, and the iris is cut off. You don't get to see the whole circle. Now, typically you do get to see the whole circle of the pupil. Now, it should be a perfect circle directly in the center of the perfect circle of the iris. So you want to make sure you have sort of even space. It looks like I have a little too much here at the top of that, but we would just pull that down a little bit. You want to make sure you have it evenly spaced around there. So you've got now the shape of the outer part of the eye, and you've got your iris and your pupil drawn in there. Make sure that you're including the highlight that you can see on the eye. Typically, if somebody takes a photograph of someone, there's a light in the room, and it's reflecting off of that surface. The other thing that we have to consider when you're drawing the eye is that you have these eyelids, and they operate in two different ways when you're drawing. The first thing is that when your eye is open like this, sort of like I say the garage door is open, then you get this lid line across the top because all of this extra skin is sitting up here on the top of it. So you'll want to make sure to include the lid line. And at the bottom edge of the eye, you have the lower lid. We typically see the thickness of that lower lid. So make sure you're not just drawing across there with one line. It is two lines because I need to be able to see the thickness of that line. Now, before you start putting in eyelashes, you need to make sure that you shade the upper lid. And this is sort of like a pipe up there. It's going to be darker at the edges, and there's going to be sort of a highlight that runs across the top. And if you do this sort of drawing through of the eye. You want to make sure you erase that before you begin to shade the eye. So then you want to make sure you shade the lid before you go in and put eyelashes in, because you don't want to mess up the eyelashes and you want them to be over the top of it. You want to make sure you get that in there first. Okay, you can certainly shade the iris with whatever coloration it has. Sometimes there's a shadow that's cast across it like this. And then you're going to put eyelashes and eyebrows in. And the thing we have to remember about eyelashes and eyebrows is that they're not perfectly straight lines like these. They're not steel rods. They grow, and so they are thicker at the bottom and they are thinner at the top. And the way you're going to get that mark is to lift your pencil as you make the mark. Typically, we have shorter and fewer lashes across the bottom. You do want to make sure that those lashes grow out of the front edge of that lower lid. And you want to pay attention to the way they grow. In other words, here you can see that they go out in this direction until they're right in front of you. That can be maybe a straight up line, and then on this side they branch out in this direction. Same thing around the bottom. Make sure they're following the direction. Then when you go into, finally, the very last thing you're going to do is to draw the hairs in the eyebrow. And this is a series of sort of lashes, just like you were drawing before, but they go in several different directions. They do grow up and around like this. They begin to come down in this direction as they come out here. But many of us, the eyebrow grows from the top and comes down into the brow in this direction, creating this sort of ridge that grows over the top. So make sure you have an image where you can zoom in well enough and you can see the actual direction of growth. Again, I want these eyes to be fully shaded. Use your best scumbling technique. I would like one full pair of eyes. I do want 5 different eyes. One should be a full pair, and one should be from a side view. This is a frontal view. One should be of a side view. 5 different eyes.